This is a tutorial that's accompanying exercise 1-4. Now, if you feel comfortable with Adobe After Effects and want to just follow along in the instructions, you should feel free to do so. However, if After Effects is new to you, and there's certain steps that are confusing, this may be helpful. The exercise is organized into four major steps, and which includes basically preparing your logo type, opening a new project, importing the Illustrator file, and then beginning to do some animated manipulations of your logo type. All right, so I'm going to move this down. Now, one of the first important things to do is to set up your Adobe Illustrator file. So if you haven't done that yet, the first thing you would need to do is to make sure that your Illustrator file is the right size. And I put in a different size than you're probably used to, and that is actually a size that's more related to video and animation than in documents. So when you create a new file, what you'll be doing is, instead of using points, you'll be using pixels, and you'll be doing 1920 by 1080. And that is standard HD format. And then you will create a screen that looks like that. Now, I have done this already, and so I will open up the one that I have, and that is this one called Logo Type. And the only other different thing that you need to consider is, if you'll go to the Layers panel, notice that each one of the items that I have that I want to animate in this logo is on a separate layer, right? Quite often, individual objects can occur on the same layer and you don't have to worry about it. But to prepare this so that it will be effective for use in After Effects, you have to set it up in this somewhat different configuration. If you haven't made extra layers before, you just hit this new layer panel, and then if everything is currently in one layer, you can start migrating stuff up into that new layer, and that's how you would create that. All right, so once I've done this, I want to save this, and I want to create a file folder where it's going to store everything, both my assets and my After Effects file. And After Effects works a little bit like InDesign in that way, in the sense that it doesn't store anything. It needs to go and retrieve things from a specific location. So it makes a lot of sense to make sure that you have your filing structure organized at this time. So I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to put my name so I can identify it. And then I'm going to put underscore, and then I'm going to put exercise 1-4. And that's where I will save pretty much everything for this exercise. And that's a good habit to get into. All right. So once I've done, I'm going to hit OK. Once I've done that, I'm going to close out of this. Now I'm going to open up Adobe After Effects. And sometimes this takes a minute, so bear with me. And what we'll be doing is opening this up. I will first introduce you to the various panels that we're going to be using in After Effects, and kind of take you through step by step. We've already now accomplished step 1, which is preparing the Illustrator file, and now we're going to go into step 2, which is opening a new project and composition in Adobe After Effects. And since my computer is a little old, it's taking a minute, but here it is. And it's going to take a hot minute. It's going to ask you if you want a new composition, and that is what in fact you want. Here you click on New Project, and you're given this window. I want to spend a second to talk about the window. This is the project panel on the right where you see my cursor right now. And that project panel is where you're going to be importing assets. And this is the composition window once we create a new composition. And this is the timeline. There's some other stuff, other panels to talk about, but those are the major ones. The first thing you'll want to do is make a new composition. And I'm going to call this composition, I'm going to use the same naming as I did for my folder. Okay. And as you can tell, it's 920 by 1080, which is what we want. Square pixels is fine. The only other thing to change is here under duration. I want it to be a 3-minute duration. Usually the default is 10. I've already set this up for 3, but I'll show you if you just click, and it's in the second set of numbers you're talking about. The first set of numbers all the way to the right are frames, and I'll talk to you about that in a second, but this is seconds. So I'm going to set, it's already set for 3 or 03, so that is fine. And now you can see a composition window. You'll see the timeline here, and you will see the project panel here. So the first thing I'm going to do is load something into the project panel, and there's a couple ways to do that. One is simply to double-click in the empty space of the project panel, and then you can bring stuff in from there. You can also do File, Import, and you can import projects that way. And I'll show you that way too. So you go File, and then Import. This is a single file I'm importing. And I'm going to find it on the desktop. It's in this exercise folder. I'm going to type in logo type. The next thing that's important is the import as section, which is right here. You don't want to import it as footage. You want to import it as a composition. And make sure that create composition is set up. And you hit OK. And now notice what you have. You have logo type. You have a separate composition that came in. And the reason why I wanted to do that is it also imported this folder. And the folder is very important. Before I do anything else, I'm simply going to take this folder and I'm going to drag it into this source panel of the timeline. And I'll show you what happens. I'm going to drag this folder in. And notice once I drag it in, I have every part of the logo put in this same location that it started. And they're imported as separate layers. And if I'll click on visibility, and you'll see the visibility on the right here. And so you'll see these are all different. Right now, Illustrator files are not as easy to manipulate. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to convert these all to shape layers. And the way that you do that is that you select each file, and you can tell a file is selected by the fact that it gets lighter when you click on it. You can tell that a panel is selected because the blue box is highlighted. So this kind of lets you know where you are in the timeline. So I'm going to select each one, and what I'm basically going to do, it doesn't actually work on the timeline, but if I go in the name panel right here, I can click outside and drag over it and select them all. Now I'm going to right click or control click on the Mac, and then I'm going to go create and create shape layer, shapes from vector layer, and I'll show you what happens there. At this point, every single one of these layers has been duplicated as a shape layer. We don't need the Illustrator files anymore, so I'm going to just click on those and just delete them individually. Or I'm going to hit Command or Control click on a PC, click all three, hit delete. Now I have all of that I need to start animating. All right, so we've completed step 3, which is import Adobe Illustrator file. So now we're in step 4, which is to begin animating. And so for this exercise, the logo type will be in its final form in the last of the 3-second animation, in the last second of the 3-second animation. Therefore, that's where it's best to move the playhead to that location first. And so notice the timeline. It says 3 seconds out here, it starts at 0. If I were to press the space bar, you'd see a playhead move, but you're not seeing much change, and therefore it's not much is happening right now. Another thing to let you know about is this space bar or this bar right here. I can actually bring these ends in, these blue ends in. I'm just doing that using the selection tool. And what that allows me to do is if I hit the space bar, notice where the space bar is traversing. You can actually have it replay a specific section over and over again. And that's how that works. All right, so I'm going to kind of undo that at this point because we want to look at the whole thing. All right. So the next thing to notice is that the timeline is divided, starts at 0, and that at 1 sec, this is the 1 second increment, this is the second increment, and in between those seconds there are frames. There are 30 frames for each second. And so that's how to think about the timeline, at least how we set it up so far. So the first thing it's asking you to do is, this is layer 1. Also, I should go back, and this is actually going back to your Illustrator file. What I've done right here is I've named these layers something meaningful. Right now, like this is circle, so I know what that is. One is called moon, I know what that is, and the rest are words. That's very useful in order so you're not just kind of wondering what that is. So that's something to consider doing in your Illustrator file. I'm sorry I didn't point it out before. So here we're going to do our first manipulation on the circle, and we're going to move the playhead to the 2 second mark, which is where it is right now. And then I'm going to open that layer. And the way you open that up to manipulate it is there's this little triangle shape, or they call it a caret. If I click on it, notice it opens up and there are 2 items here. There's the contents and the transform. We're going to be transforming, so I'm going to click on the transform panel. And notice that we have these 5 things that we can transform: anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. Okay, so we're going to first start with opacity, which is something becomes opaque or transparent, and in this case it'll make it look like it's appearing or disappearing. If I want something to change, what I have to do is I have to create a 2 keyframes. There's no change between a single keyframe, but there is a change between 2 keyframes. And so you start that process. Here I am at the 2 second mark, and I'm going to click this stopwatch. All right, so that stopwatch tells me that, and you'll now see a keyframe that's lit up in that section. All right, so if I were to play it now, still nothing would happen because I haven't done anything right now to this layer, right? So I'm going to move back a bit to the spot called 1 minute and 20 frames. So it's 1 minute here up to 20 frames. Now, I'm not going to hit the stopwatch again because it's actually going to then reset everything. But instead, I'm going to drift over here and add a keyframe. And once I add this keyframe, I'm going to now do something, because the way that you create animation is you create a change from one to another. And so here I am with the opacity, and there, if this is the opacity value, which is full, I want it to come to full opacity at the end, at the 2 second mark. But at the 1 minute and 20 frame mark, I want it to be invisible. And there's 2 ways you can do that. I can either click on it and type in 0, or scrub it down to 0. Right? And so now watch what happens. I've just done a simple animation. I'm going to hit the space bar. All we've got is just this circle that looks like it's appearing. So that's one parameter. I'm going to close up this layer by hitting the caret, the original caret, back again, and now that layer is closed. So I'm going to drift down to the second layer, and I'm going to drift this back to the 10 second mark. And I'm going to open the layer, the second layer, doing the same thing. I'm going to hit the caret. And then I'm going to hit the transform controls. And then I'm going to hit the scale stopwatch. And that sets a keyframe right there. All right. Still, nothing will happen unless I do a change. And then I'm going to drift. Now I'm going to take my playhead and I'm going to move it back to the 1 second mark. And at the 1 second mark, I'm going to take this scale. And right now, the scale is locked, which means that both the up and down parameters and the side to side parameters are going to change in proportion. And that's the way I want it. I could scrub this again, or I could click on this and just type in 0 and type in enter or return. And notice it is now both set to 0. So let's see what we have so far. I'm going to hit the spacebar again. I'm going to bring it back to the beginning. Spacebar. All right, so notice the spacebar. Now, what's interesting is as it's scaling up, notice that it's scaling up from a very specific place, right? It seems to be coming forward, and that might be what we want. But that's because the anchor point for this is located in this center spot here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. If you wanted to change that, you could. And the way you would do that is you would go drift up to this, which is the pan behind or anchor point tool. You click on it. I can now grab that anchor point and put it right in the center. And then now watch how that changes. Now I'm going to play it again. And notice how now it seems to be growing from its center. All right. It doesn't matter to me whether you have it from its original anchor point or growing from its center. Either one will work. Okay, so I'm going to close that up. And I'm going to open up the next one, which is the moon. Okay, I just don't want to get lost here. Okay, so I'm going to move the playhead to the 1 second mark. And I'm going to open up transform. And I'm going to click on the position stopwatch. All right, so we did scale. We've done opacity. Now I'm going to do position. All right, so I'm going to move the playhead back to the 20-second mark. And under position, and this is going to take a little bit of doing. The position right now, I'm going to move this in some location. And in this case, I might move it up. I'm going to grab this. I'm in the position. And right now, I can't grab it because I'm still on the pan behind anchor point tool. But if I move over to the selection tool, which is up here, I can now successfully grab this and move it up. Now notice I'm moving it up, but it's a little hard to see where I'm moving it to, right? It's kind of going off. So I want to make this composition panel maybe a little smaller just for this operation. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to click 33 instead. That gives me a little more headroom. And I'm going to move it up. So it's kind of off the screen. And right there. Okay, so let's show you what's happened so far. All right. So outside is not, nothing's happened thus far. And I'm going to be taking those and basically doing the same thing to both of those to show you how that would work. All right. So far, nothing extraordinary. I just wanted you to see some of the basic tools in terms of animation. All right. So I'm going to start with this one here. And I'm going to move this to the 10-second mark, or the 10 frame mark rather, not the 10-second mark. and I'm going to click the position and scale stopwatch. So this is something you can do. You can move more than one parameter at once. So this position and scale. And this, and then I'm going to take this playhead and move it to 0. And under scale, I'm going to bring down the scale again to 0. And it sets up once I hit return, it sets up a keyframe here. And then position, and under position, I'm going to, let's see, I think I'm going to grab it and I'm going to pull it all the way over to the side. Like this. All right, so this is what's happening at this point. I'm going to hit play. All right, outside design. All right, so I can grab these. So I would like to do the same thing basically to the next layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of them, and you can tell I've selected all of them because they are all highlighted, right? And I'm going to hit Command C, and I'm going to close that up, open up Transfer, and hit Command V, and nothing happens. Why is that? Because I have not hit the scale and position. I'm going to select both of them, Command V. Now notice what happens. So I had to select both scale and position and hit their stopwatches for anything to happen. Now when I play it, they mirror each other. All right. Okay, so now I've kind of demonstrated a number of different operations that you can do. Notice the operations are a little bit wooden at this point, and what I would like to do now is maybe play around with how they're traveling. Right now they're traveling at a constant rate of speed, which feels a little bit mechanical. So I'm going to introduce you to this concept of easing, and I will ease one item, that it will be the moon, and I'll show you how that would work. Okay, so remember this is the moon layer, and we have just basically position, and we're going to ease that position. So what is easing? Easing is a way of changing the rate at which something travels to make it feel more like it's in regular motion. It kind of, regular motion responds to inertia. You know, when I start to walk, I start slowly and then I move quickly, and when I want to slow down toward the end of my journey, I start slowing down again. That's more of, as opposed to me being a conveyor belt, which is what some of this stuff feels like without easing. So this is how easing works. So I will take these two, and again, the only way animation happens is between two or more keyframes. So these keyframes, I want to select both of them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on actually, the one thing I can do is first I can click here, right click or control click on the PC, and then I can or right click or control click on the Mac rather. I can go to Keyframe Assistant, and I'm going to go to Easy Ease, which is both easing in and easing out. And you can tell that they've been eased because if you'll notice, the keyframes now look like hourglasses rather than diamonds. All right, so that might have done something. So let's see what that looks like. Right now, I'm not seeing too much, right? Too much difference. It's possible that it's happening too fast to notice. So what I'm going to do right now, there's a couple things I could do. First of all, I could change the distance between any of these um, simply by clicking on one of them, pulling it further out, or that kind of thing. But another thing I can do is change the rate that Easy Ease is happening. And the way I do that is I select both of them, and then I go to this right here, which is the graph editor. And I click on the graph editor, and this graph shows the rate of change, which right now is rather constant. But remember, ease is the same way as saying slow. So if I click on one of these bottom anchor points, notice then I have Bezier handles. I'm going to take this Bezier handle on the end, on the tail end, and I'm going to move it this way. And so what's going to happen, and notice how I've therefore successfully changed the curve. What's going to happen is it's going to start fast and then slow toward the end. And let's see, I'm going to turn off the graph editor. Let's see if that has made some change. Right now, it's still a little fast to see, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the keyframes, I'm going to move it out a little bit, just to slow that process down so you can see it. Now, if you notice, as it's coming down, have you noticed the moon is starting to slow down as it comes into position? All right. So now I've shown easing, and easing is very valuable in terms of demonstrating a more naturalistic motion. Most of the stuff that I showed you in terms of motion graphics examples did use easing in various capacities. All right, so the last thing I want to do is show you how to export. And the exporting, the first thing you have to do is hit save. So file, and we're going to hit save. And I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to find this panel here. I'm going to name this all right. I'm going to hit save. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is export. So I'm going to go to File, Export, and I'm going to click the second one, which is Add to Render Queue. Now, a lot of these settings are correct, but there's best settings, which is what you want. Right now, it's set for lossless. For some glitchy reason, even though this is saving it as a QuickTime file, which is an Adobe file format, it does not recognize QuickTime. So I go to lossless, I click on it, and you will see this output mode settings. And instead of using QuickTime, which I guess is an Apple product, not an Adobe product, I'll click instead, pick H.264, and it does recognize H.264. And that's the only thing you have to do here. You click OK. Now, where is it going to? Output to, not yet specified. I click on this blue area, and it's already loaded up as my name. It's already loaded up in here. So it's going to load, this MP4 is going to load exactly where I want it to load. And I hit save. And then I hit render. And once it's all rendered, you hear the magic word, and that is the exercise. So the only thing left to do, you've saved this, I'll save it again, is to go to the folder, which is right here, and see if my MP4 plays. All right. And so it plays. So there you go. This is the first, and it's a rather long demonstration, but it's the first demonstration on how to use Adobe After Effects and how to use it in relationship to Adobe Illustrator.